Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show for your Taco Tuesday edition. As was put up in the chat there by Lisa. Turnaround Tuesday? Yeah, very well might have been. What an interesting turn of events we've had over the past week. We have like what looks like chaos and pain and panic, and all of a sudden euphoria and jubilation. The beauty of being a trader in these markets. Therefore, I titled today's show, Eyeing All-Time Highs. Kenny says, I really wish I hadn't sold those covered calls yesterday. Well, look, you've got at least till Friday, right, Kenny? So, excuse me. Don't worry so much about it. This could change in a heartbeat. For now, you're wishing you didn't sell them. Look, I've got covered calls on my positions, and I'm okay with it. Fine. If they get taken away at my strike prices, I'll be happy with that. It'd be a great gain, great rate of return. Did I sell covered calls today? I did on my IBIT this afternoon. I sold some covered calls on my IBIT. I actually sold some puts on crude oil. I know we were nervous about crude oil, and it's just as much as it's sold off, I was like, you know what, I'll go sell some puts on USO. So we'll see how that one pans out. Decent rate of return. I got about a 0.5% rate of return for 4 days, which I'm okay with. And if I get put this at $71 was my strike, totally fine with that as well. So. All right, let's dive into the all-time highs thing and talk about what's going on in our markets. Obviously, the main crux of all this stuff wasn't Jerome Powell, which unfortunately I did not get a chance to see all of his. I got just pieces of it. I was too busy today, which was terrible. But the ceasefire deal. Now, I don't know how many times in the history of the United States a sitting president has dropped the F-bomb on camera, but that was pretty interesting. If it's in fact real, you never know with AI these days. I don't know if you guys caught that. But they were asking Trump about what's going on with Iran and Israel, and he's like, I just don't like the fact that, we have the cease deal, and right as we make it, it's only got 12 hours to tone things down. They go and launch a huge bombing campaign against Iran. Look, it sounds great. I just don't know if it's going to ultimately pan out and be a complete ceasefire. And certainly the markets are expecting it to be great. Then Trump, yeah. I would agree, Big Gab. He'd use it appropriate, but there's always this mystique of being presidential and really representing yourselves in a I guess a very nice, dignified way. And that was just kind of losing his cool a little bit. It was pretty funny when if it is real, which I hope it was. And I think he's right. He said they just don't know what the F they're doing. And yeah, I would tend to agree. It's been going on for so long. Let's just end it. Let's be done before. He said before he doesn't like cussing, but sometimes I like cursing just because it's a good exclamation point. However, you are the sitting president. True, Garfield. True. All right. So the ceasefire between Iran and Israel is supposed to be underway in effect as we speak. I don't know if we'll see. It said 6 hours from the time that he did it, and then it was 12 hours. So we should be there in that period of calm from here on out. Now, I personally don't believe that'll happen. I think we're going to see some shocks to the system along the way, which is why I decided to sell some puts on crude oil. But let's take a peek at what happened with our markets overall, because honestly, it was a pretty nice day. We'll go from top to bottom here. Obviously, because of that news, crude oil took a big dump again. It's the second day in a row of really significant downside movement. And I'll give you the numbers here. If you go from that peak on Sunday night, really, to our low point that we established today, you're talking 18.37% slide in the price of crude oil. That is pretty darn significant. I had, just so we can show you guys, I have the $71 strikes on USO. So that's what I sold today, expiring Friday. And I don't think we'll get there, but if we do, I'm fine. 71, just nibbling some little bit of extra premium there. So that was your worst performer, down 5%. Again, I believe that this will flare back up as it has for decades now, and tensions will get the worst of them. So that was your worst performer, 5.11%. At some point, like I mentioned on yesterday's show, I do think it's a buy, and that's kind of where I was looking at. You really have 2 points if you're looking at that crude oil chart. I'll draw two little zones here where you kind of have a basing period, and today's action puts us right in one between 64.60 and 65.46. And then there's one that's just a hair lower than that, which I think is a better zone personally, and that is between 62.17 and 63.41. So those are your two levels there on crude oil. However, if this all does turn into peace in the Middle East and kumbaya, we're all going to be friends now and send each other holiday cards, maybe this will continue to go lower and lower and lower. I just think the higher probability is that we'll see this thing bounce back to the upside, as that trend was already in place before the bombing happened, at least starting to break out to the upside before that bombing happened. That was your worst performer. Second place, from the bottom, I guess. I don't know what you would call that, but 1.6% slide for gold today. And why? Because it was obviously a risk-on type of day. People going away from those risk-off assets and saying, give me the risky stuff, which was at the top of our charts, and we'll get to there in a second. Technically, nothing here. Nothing that exciting. I don't see anything really noteworthy on the gold future side of things. It really feels like we're just stuck in this range between 3180, call it 3200, and right around 3450. 10-year yield dropped as well, continuing. And this is, in my opinion, a fairly significant break because we've been bouncing on that 4.32 level for the 10-year for quite some time. Well, at least for about the past month and a half. And today we broke down below that, and we got to close below. So we've tiptoed below 4.32% before. It's just the closing of it down to 4.296 is where the 10-year ended today, continuing what looks like a short-term downtrend on the 10-year. Now, where would it stop? I don't see any real great demand zone. Maybe at that May 7th and 8th, but I don't think that's a strong demand zone. So most likely if it does drift, you're looking about 4.17 down to 4.13. So there's your targets for your 10-year yield, which would be great for our housing market. Your dollar index also slid, but nothing new there. It's just bouncing right at those dead lows. We did not break it today, so the low I have on that range is $97.69, and today our intraday low on today's candle, 97.70. So we're pretty much right on it. Trend does imply that this is going to break to the downside. Maybe we get one more bounce here, but it really does feel like we're going to see this thing drift lower and lower and lower for that dollar index. Now, getting close to podium time. Not quite there. We missed it by just a little bit, and this goes back to the topic du jour, which is eyeing all-time highs. That S&P getting awfully darn close to all-time highs. And the all-time I got there is 61.66.5, and today we hit an intraday high on our markets of 61.55. So we're just 11 points away from all-time highs on the S&P, which I do think we'll get to, and I think we'll break through it and continue to move to the upside here. Just there's more arguments, in my opinion, for bullishness than there are for bearishness. The big wild card, at least for the last week, has been the Iran-Israel conflict, and how does the U.S. get involved, and does it escalate? Do we see some, attacks at home, which hopefully we do not get? So, all in all, that's your S&P 500 in fourth place, 1.1%. We take a step higher than that with the Russell 2000, which has been the weaker of all of our major indexes, at least the big four, which is Nasdaq, S&P, Dow, and Russell. It was up 1.25%, 2176 where it closed, and it's headed right towards that 2195 level, which we hit our heads on back in, we'll call that June 11th, and it also was an area where we broke down from back in February of this year, so kind of getting back to where we were, but we're still quite a ways away from all-time highs on the Russell 2000, which I do find a little bit surprising. I would think that if we were going to see, big moves up in this market, that the Russell might be one of those big move places. Why? Because small caps typically lead in times of economic optimism, and we didn't see that. To get to where we are at all-time highs, the Russell would have to rally 13.89% from current levels, whereas the S&P to get to all-time highs from current levels would be, we could hit it probably on the after-hour session today. You're looking at a 0.35% move to the upside. So we are pretty much at all-time highs now for the S&P. Russell, not even close. And then, you have the Nasdaq 100. Now, if we go back to its all-time high, which happened on this pretty significant gap up back on December 17th, that puts an all-time high of 22,412. Today, intraday, our intraday high was 22,448. So we broke an all-time high today on the Nasdaq 100, and we closed right at the all-time high. It's pretty funny. 22,412 is the previous high from back in December. 22,412.75 is the all-time high that we closed at today. So congratulations, Nasdaq. Ding, 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 ding. You made it to all-time highs. And before I get to Bitcoin, you look at the Magnificent Seven stocks in here, and most of them were looking pretty good. As you can see, Tesla was really your laggard, down 2.35%, and that's just because of that optimism that happened yesterday, right? There was I think, was that you, Chad? I always lose, or Steven. I think Steven was talking about how he sold out of his Tesla, and I think that was the right move. We have this little area of supply above, which has been hit before, between $354 and $367. We tailed into that yesterday, opened up in it today, and then sold off from there. So fine. I think that's what should have happened. It was a little bit overdone for the event in Austin, Texas. Not that big of a deal. Tesla was down, bro, because look at that pop yesterday over the weekend from the event in Austin, Texas. I mean, it was great. Nobody got killed. It was a fine event, but I think everyone expected it to go as is. Not that was that big of a deal. Plus, it was also in a very controlled environment with limited range on those vehicles. But it is, to me, at least in my opinion, a sign of the times, and we'll probably see much, much, much more of that. So that was your week. As Apple still continuing to languish. It just doesn't feel like Apple can get anything going here. But then you start to move up that ladder. Now, I bring up Microsoft here because today, all hail the king. We have a new king at the top of the market cap charts. That, my friends, would be Microsoft. I'll bring up FinViz here so you can see your stock screener. And number one market cap company in the United States, $3.642 billion. For Microsoft, NVIDIA, which also had a great day, but still not able to retake that lead. That was $3.608 billion for NVIDIA. And then Apple dropping below today, just sank slightly below its $3 trillion mark. So you only have two companies in the United States at $3 trillion market cap. That's Microsoft and NVIDIA. Now, in the $2 trillion cap, it's funny, we kind of forget about these $2 trillion companies. You've got Apple, Amazon, you've got Google are all in that $2 trillion mark, and then Meta is in that $1 trillion. We got a few more in the $1 trillion, but out of the magnificent. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. Thank you, Garfield. I get so wrapped up. Thank you, Garfield. I'm glad I looked over at chat too. So here is your list. My bad for not switching that over. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, Avgo right all-time highs too, but look at their, Broadcom doing great. I mean, it's only 1.2 trillion, and it sounds like kind of silly, only 1.2 trillion. But yeah, Microsoft really leading that charge. And when we looked at the charts the other day, I thought it was interesting to do a comparison. I don't know if you guys have used stock charts before. I like this website a lot. I'm a big fan of the perf charts. So if you go to stock charts, again, I have no sponsorship. But by the way, before I go any further, for those of you who are using the Discord, it's only taken less than 7 days. I mean, I've had that channel up, set it up last Wednesday. So we're not even a week into it, and someone's already impersonating me, sending you guys direct messages, trying to get you to buy some service or whatever. If you see it, you guys know that I am not trying to sell you anything. I am not going to manage your money for you. We can talk trades in the room, but I'm not in it to manage your money. So please, if you see them, report them. If it's not Trader Merlin, TraderMerlin, report it. They put two I's in there. They drop off an R. It looks like me, but just absolutely ridiculous, these scammers. It just blows my mind how they are. Flui, it's in the description of the show today. I'll put the Discord link in the description of the show every day. Andres, get my money back, please. Oh, please. I hope that none of you fell victim to these scammers. You guys should know better, right? You can, if you ever reach out and you think it's legit, you can always email me directly, right? Please, my email, tradermerlin@gmail.com. It's not a catch-all account. It's a real account. So frustrating because it's sad because people actually send them money. And don't send these scammers money, okay? I haven't found the time for Discord yet. And so, no problem, MTB. Honestly, it's not something that I'm managing. I literally set it up because many of you have said, is there a way that you could set up so because you guys like to talk together. It's awesome. I think you guys have a great little chat group going here, but you can't really share charts in this chat. You can't do, stuff. So the Discord room's just there for you guys to, post your charts. I'll feedback every now and again if I can, but Yeah, and if you want different rooms, let me know. Tofi wants to set up one about the wheel strategy. So I gave him the power to set up a wheel strategy room. He'll probably set that one up, and you guys can tinker around in there, but whatever you guys like. Okay, so let's go back to this perf chart. And really, I think it's really a great resource for you if you're ever trying to compare. Remember, we've talked about a lot of different ETFs. Like the other day, we were talking about nuclear ETFs. And, well, how do you compare one to the other? Well, you can certainly compare them against each other or a benchmark index. So just so we can see what's going on with that Magnificent 7, obviously that's Apple. What I'll do is I'll create what's called a perf chart. You can see at the top here, it's got a little box to change. I'll select perf chart. We'll go Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA. We'll go Tesla. Oop. TSLA, Amazon, Google, Apple, Amazon, NVIDIA. Yeah, I got them. Oh, I forgot Meta. Meta is what I'm missing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Meta. Okay, so here's our Magnificent 7. What's great about this is you can use a slider to give you a longer term time perspective. I mean, so if you go back to 2021, for example, I mean, it's no comparison. It's all NVIDIA all day. NVIDIA's up over 1,000%, or roughly 1,000% since 2021, whereas everything else is just Peter along. Meta is the best at 159. But if you want to, you can use the slider at the bottom. I'll drag it over to January of this year, just so we can see what it looks like this year, and that's roughly the beginning, right about there. All right, that's fine. So for this year, you can kind of see who's the winner. Meta is leading for the year. I found it interesting that, as this market is back to positive for the year, I can real quickly get you the number here so we can, how about that? I'll add in S&P 500. Actually, should I do S&P or Nasdaq? We'll do Nasdaq. I'll add on the QQQ. Just so we can have that as a reference point to see how this has performed since the beginning of the year. And when we draw that on there we go. And this is roughly. It's not exact because I can't get this slider here to be perfect. Since the beginning of the year, the Nasdaq is right there. Nasdaq is up 5.05%. All right, so you got 5.05% for the Nasdaq. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the Magnificent 7s are underperforming the Nasdaq. Apple on the year down 17%. You have Alphabet down 14%, Tesla down 13.6%, and Amazon down 4.2%. It's a drag race up at the top for best performing, and I know people would think it'd be NVIDIA. No, it's actually Microsoft is 16.48. You've got Meta at 15.45, and then really equaling the S&P 500 is NVIDIA. So I like to do this to give relative performance so we can kind of see how they perform over a certain window of time. If you go the last 6 months or so, Microsoft is ripping. So let me let's just go back the last 30 days. So here at the bottom, you got 30 days. Actually, NVIDIA is the best performer over 30 days. Most of them is performing well. Apple is the underperformer. And this has been the trend we talked about the other day. We've got to be careful with Apple here. And again, I do think the tariff issues are a problem. I think that competition's a problem. I think that Apple has got some problems here. For the last 30 days, it's the only one of the Magnificent 7 that's down. When I go back 60 days, Apple's the only one that's down. So something's wrong fundamentally with Apple. And what I'm worried is that I think that some people are going to go, well, Apple is going to have its day in the sun and it's going to come back and rally. Well, forget about that. You should certainly be going with the ones that are performing. That, of course, is Microsoft has got the best trend of them all. I would contend that Microsoft does feel like it's moving too far too fast. That's not great. What do you got? There's a link again. I don't see it in Merlin's bio, but maybe he has it somewhere. Oh, yeah, the link is in the chat, is the description to this video, to the YouTube show. I need to add IBM to the Magnificent 7? IBM to the Magnificent 7? Here's why I can't do that. The Magnificent 7 is all NASDAQ stocks. IBM is not a NASDAQ stock. So I would be crossing streams there. I can't do that. I could do it for visual effect, but as far as adding it officially to the Magnificent 7, I I think that there'd be some challenge there. They would not look like the Magnificent Seven stocks that are just rolling through. But because it's you, Margaret, let's add in international business machines. Let me add it in here. Let's go IBM, a comma. Oop, no, that's not it. Add a comma. Okay, why are you not letting me do a comma? There we go. So we had an IBM here. No thanks. And this goes back to 200 days, but let's just do it from the beginning of the year because I like to do year review. IBM is your leader, 26.82%. Crazy. Coming alive. Apple is fast at the end. Maybe, Rob. Apple, every market cycle, every period of time will have a lead dog, a king, if you will. And Apple's been the king of that hill for a long time. I mean, there were periods of time where I was so concerned about Apple because it was like 23% of the Nasdaq. If you look at the Nasdaq 100 weighting, 23%. It was nuts. Then they split it and reduced the weighting, etc. So it got a little bit better. But every dog has their day in the sun. However, there's new competitors all the time. I use the Lion King, if you will. He was the king for a long time, and then the younger one stepped up and took over. Well, IBM is that old dog company as well, but they are realizing that AI is the way to go and doing all sorts of AI services, which is helping. And then you have, of course, NVIDIA, Meta reinventing themselves. And really all these companies, the Magnificent Sevens, I would think that a lot of their growth is expectations about AI and AI applications going forward. I've really done quite a bit of AI work lately, and it's just mind-blowing how efficient it's made me in a lot of the process that I do. It's interesting watching Tesla trade up while Apple doesn't. Well, they're totally different companies, right? Totally different companies. One is pure technology, which would be Apple and selling phones and some services, and you got music, but that's kind of panned out. Fizzled out. Remember, it used to be Apple Music was a huge revenue generator, and now that's all switched to Spotify, right? Spotify is the king of streaming music now. Apple kind of left out in the cold on that one. Does Apple have computers and iPads? Yeah, they do. But I think that you look at what Tesla's bringing to the table, and it's bringing AI, it's bringing in robotics, it's bringing in hardware devices that Apple does not have, and just a rotation. No big deal. So yeah, I'm not touching Apple, but you guys know I can't. And certainly from the China angle, I mean, Apple is under direct fire. Trump has made it very clear. Bring your manufacturing back to the States or, you're going to get big tariffs. And I think that's looming over the price chart of Apple. It's what you see here on Apple. The rest of the market feels strong. The rest of the market feels real good. I mean, there's Apple, which looks like it's just stuck sideways right now. Tesla obviously has a whole different... If Elon Musk didn't go full-on bro mode with President Trump and alienate half of his following and then flip-flop and alienate the following that liked him, I think Tesla would be in a much higher position. I think it'd be way higher than... I think he might be at all-time highs on Tesla. But, those were poor choices that were made and caused a lot of pain for Tesla. Long-term, I think you're great. You look at Microsoft. Microsoft has just been steadily on the sidelines building. Google, we've talked about this, is looking fairly ugly for the year just simply because there's a lot of unknown question marks around Google. Will they get broken up? Does the Chrome browser get split? Is there antitrust issues against them for advertising practices? That becomes a big issue. Meta has abandoned ship on things that weren't working and focus on things that are working, officially getting out of metaverse and focusing on AI. Great move. Amazon, well, it's just Amazon, right? Amazon is a phenomenal company. And then, of course, the guy selling all the tools for AI is NVIDIA. So, these are the Magnificent Seven that's dragging us higher and higher. Google is still breaking above the swing low. Yeah, it is. So if you look at the trend, right, the trend looks okay on the bottoms here. Now, when you look at that, you're talking the swing low right here. Let me put it on the screen for you. You're talking about how yesterday it broke down below that 166.68. So it broke that swing low, but now today kind of hesitating a little bit. Yes, and again, it's a good observation, Rob. The question is, how do you trade that, right? Does that break of the low from June 3rd, does that mean now we go short? I'm looking at the bigger uptrend here. Even though, I'm speaking negative about Google just because of the uncertainties. I think Google's a great company. I think Google's fantastic. But when you have federal regulators talking about breaking your company up, and that verdict should be sometime before August, it just would make me nervous about holding it, period, right? It's a gamble crapshoot. You can go long on Google thinking, oh, everything's going to be fine, and that judge could hand down an aggressive breakup strategy, and Google just tanks, or vice versa, right? So it's just too many unknowns for me to want to mess with them. We should get a piece of the tax break on cell phones menu. Wouldn't that be nice? Ain't going to happen. I mean, if Apple had to make their cell phones in the United States, we'd all be back to home phones. It would cost too much money. Like layaway plan. I mean, they already have layaway plans for their phones, but crazy. The other piece for today, so I got one last one. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch this man speak today. But, of course, he testified in front of the House Financial Services Committee today. And he's got another one tomorrow, which I think is more important. The only highlight I caught was what was sent to me, and it was about Bitcoin. And talking about how Bitcoin's banks have the authority and the right to offer Bitcoin to their clients. That's a big change to what we had a year ago. So we're already seeing, and I talked about that with my crypto class this morning. If you guys want to know more about the Genius Act, I'll talk about that in the XLT session for Trading Academy tomorrow. I have the general session tomorrow. I can't remember exactly what time, but you can check your calendar to find out when that session is. And I'll talk about the nuts and bolt details of the Genius Act, because I read through 57 pages of legal documents, and it was a rough read, I'll tell you that. So he's got more testimony tomorrow, and I saw some chat in the Discord group talking about how you guys kind of got blown out and levels didn't hold today. That's going to happen. When you got Jerome Powell speaking, it doesn't matter what the final output of the whole session is. He could say one wrong thing to a senator, and all of a sudden markets could tank or they could rally. You just don't know. So you just kind of got to be on heightened alert as that happens. Anya says, it says the Discord link is invalid. Well, that should not be. Let me create a link for you. It should be, it should be, see if this works for you guys. There you go. I'll try to do a fresh link. I use that link, and it should have no limitations on it, but typically the links expire every 7 days, so. Thank you, Lisa. XLT's tomorrow at 1:30 Eastern time. There you go. Yeah, I never remember what the exact times are, so, but I'll be there. 11:30 or 1:30 Eastern. And that's good because tomorrow I have a little more time to watch the testimony from Mr. Powell. Okay, so for me, same result, invalid on that one. That really shouldn't be. Let me create it one more time. Invite people. Expires. Never. Generate new link. Okay. Let's try this bad boy. That one should never expire. So there we go. That's what I put in the description, is one that never expires. Is there a rubber ducky channel? Well, rest in peace, Tim Blotzer. He's no longer there. But if you want to start a rubber ducky channel of VBMet, I'm fine for it. Look, the only issue with like a Discord room is if you create so many rooms, then you kind of lose track of who's where. So I tried to create it very simply. There's an options room, there's stocks, crypto, forex is the live room, and then there's chat, so you guys can text channels where you can send pictures and charts and things like that. But if there's something special you guys want, again, it's your doing. I just will be here to help create the environment and police it, making sure that everything goes okay. Scammers and salesmen are kept out of it so that we don't. I did see there were a couple people that signed up that represent other companies, so I'll keep my eye on that. Keep my eye on what they're doing in the room. I don't want them soliciting you. If someone's soliciting you, to sign up for their class or their school or their software, don't do it. If it's part of being a trading group, I'm okay with that. There's other people that have trading rooms. Several people have approached me about trading rooms and sharing information. I'll let them do that in there if they have a trading room, or maybe they just decide to do it in there. All right. So let's go back to our markets. So for me, again, just updates on my positions, which I still have running. So I was exercised on that United Health at 305, and I just sold the 307.5 calls just because it's been traversing sideways. It generates some weekly income on this bad boy. And it's been fairly low volatility, which has been great. But really, my biggest one right now is not Misty, it's MicroStrategy. And today's action of it was absolutely fantastic. It was a great day. It erased today's gap and run, actually erased all of last week's losses from MicroStrategy. So it was a pretty phenomenal run. I do have the 340 calls against that position, which will get taken away if it gets above 400. But I don't think we'll get there this week. I think we'll probably get into the 390s by the tail end of this week. Everything staying the same and kind of trends continuing on. And then I did sell some SMCI. So I have the $40 strikes on SMCI expiring Friday. Collected some pretty nice premium there. Okay, Sweeney says, the fake Merlin account almost got me. Crazy how good the fake bots are. I just have to watch them. Yeah, and I apologize, man. I wish there was something I could do. I wish I could fire some electronic device that would go through the channel that they're using and explode in their ear canal in their headset. So unfortunately, I can't do that. So just be on alert. You guys all know that I'm not trying to sell you anything. You know, if the only classes I sell would be part of Trading Academy and you'd go directly to them, I'll never contact you to try to manage your money. This is as much as I'm going to do. I do not have my licenses to be a financial advisor, nor do I want to be a financial advisor. I just love talking about markets, as many of you guys do as well. So SMCI is an interesting one. You know, their background makes me a little bit nervous with the fact that they had to, you know, their auditor left and they had to go through that whole process. But now, you look at this chart here, the premium is still very high for SMCI, and it's just been traversing sideways between 40 and 46. So that's kind of the range I've been playing with SMCI for a while, and it's been fairly lucrative. But as they say, everything works until it doesn't. So I'll continue to stay with SMCI. Selling puts at the lower end of this range, like 40, 39 range, but that's the other one that I'm in. Let's see. Rob says, short that MicroStrategy in supplies and above. Well, you could, but I'm so bullish on Bitcoin. I'm bullish on Bitcoin, so no. I'm not short MicroStrategy. I just don't trust it enough to short it. Even though I think that there's some flaws fundamentally with how they're constructed, how I question their Bitcoin holdings, how Michael Saylor is just this, you know, he's the I don't know, the evangelistic Bitcoin guy who's kind of going off his rocker. And we are in a little bit of a downtrend on MicroStrategy going back into May of this year, right? We're making lower lows and lower highs, a slight downtrend. So I guess if you've got the stones for it, you know, Rob, you could certainly go and short this downtrend, which on most other markets, I'd say, yeah, short the downtrend. I'm just too bullish on Bitcoin. And again, I believe that we're going to have a huge monster rally here going into November on Bitcoin. Not quite sure how that's going to happen, but the math historically has shown me that we tend to see pretty significant rallies in the last year of a 4-year cycle. And here we are in that 4-year cycle. So, Margaret says, perf chart for sectors. Yeah, so I do this one periodically where I will take this perf chart, and I think what you're asking is if you look here, like my 1% strategy typically is done on these S&P sectors. So taking all of these sectors here, XLK, so you got technology, financials, healthcare, building materials, industrials, consumer discretionary, utilities, real estate, and energy, taking all of those ETFs and putting them in a perf chart can be done as well, which is a great resource for you because, you know, part of what you're trying to do is you're analyzing a price chart, right? Or we all are in whatever market it is. You're analyzing a price chart. But when you do a perf chart or a performance chart and you stack all those sector ETFs, it'll give you a real clear image of what's been leading. And I take the slider, I love taking this slider and just scrolling out and saying, okay, let's look at the past few years. And, you know, so you can kind of see the trends change. Like, when did it start to change? When did money flow from, let's say, energy into healthcare? Those will have you, you know, help you do that. Might have one pre-made. I'm pretty sure there is a pre-made one, but I always like to do it myself. It's funny because I manually create it every time, but there probably is a pre-made one. But it's a great tool. This is one that I like a lot. And then, of course, more research. MRCI has another great one where you have a comparison chart. And this just shows, relationships. And it's a massive grid. I'm sure on your screen right now it looks just horribly bad. But I like this one because it will tell you the relationships between things like the 10-year bond and the euro and soybeans and wheat, corn, gold, European markets, Nikkei. And you can change that for 80 days, 30 days, 120, 180 days. So these are just some simple resources that help you analyze correlations, inverse relationships, when money flows from one market to another. This isn't I like charts. This is more of a table and more research. So I like to have the chart, which is why I like the perf chart better. There you go. Okay, let me go into your economic calendar for tomorrow. As far as today's goes, let's go bring up just the Tuesday data because probably want to talk about just a little bit, which was your Case-Shiller Composite 20 Home Price Index. Now, we are all students of trend. I'm going to assume that everyone here is a student of the trend and understanding that price action is really what you are trading. This makes me a little bit nervous. So the S&P Case-Shiller Composite 20 Home Price Index, which what we're looking at now, represents the real estate markets in 20 major metropolitan areas, just to give you an idea of how the country is doing. Now, for all of you who own a home, you want prices to accelerate like they did back here in 2020. You want to see 9, 10, 15, 20% gain year over year. Like, hallelujah, bring it back, right? Well, notice what's happening. If the trend is your friend until the bend at the end, I'll zoom in here a little bit. We're making lower lows and lower highs on home value increases. So back in May of last year, we were at 7.4. Now we're at 3.4, and today's number is 3.4. My mind when I look at this chart is, okay, what does this tell me? And this is, I think it's called a Rune Goldberg thing, where you drop the marble and it hits the cup and the cup knocks this and everything just kind of cascades into each other. If that chart looks like this, what does it mean? It means that home appreciation right now, year over year, is only growing at about 3.4%. Now, you have to put yourself in the position of flippers, right? People are flipping homes. Hi, Dad. Talking to you right now. My dad bought a home and he's flipping it. And I'm like, oh, no. No. Wrong time, Pop. Wrong time. Anyway, you buy a home. You do some work on it and you expect to flip it because, your improvements add value, which you might be able to get more selling it, but also the trajectory of the housing market might carry the value of that house even harder. So what's interesting for me is the next step. So if I see the home prices are only accelerating at 3.4%, there's a lot of people that bought homes because you were getting such a great rate of return, appreciation over time. It wasn't just buying a home to live in. It's an asset class that's moving up. If we continue to see this get weaker and weaker and weaker, what's going to happen is I think more and more homes are going to come on the market and go on sale. And I think I told you about this. Let's see if it's shown up today. I get every day, I may have deleted them, in my junk mail account. Yeah, is it my junk? It's my personal account, so I can't show you that one. My personal one, I'm going to keep that one, this one private. But there's a lot of stuff that is just dropping prices. And I've been looking up El Dorado Hills, California. There seems like every day houses are being dropped in value. Also in Petaluma, prices are dropping. In Orange County, prices are starting to drop in certain spots, which tells me that people are like, I just want to get out of my house. And that could start to push prices lower and lower, which, as many of you point out, could be a very good thing, right? Because it allows more affordability to homes. That would also help with the inflation data. If those housing prices continue to slide, then we'll probably see rental numbers drop a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. So the declining housing market's a good thing for those looking to buy a home, and it brings things back to equilibrium or to a norm, but it also reflects deteriorating housing market, which has been driving the economy to the upside. Remember, a lot of Americans use their home as an ATM. You've got all this extra equity in your home. I can take loans out against that. You guys remember what happened last time we all did that aggressively? It was the housing crash of 2007. People were using their home as an ATM to buy new houses, and all of a sudden you can't make the payments. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next 6 months, but I do find this chart very interesting because I thought we might start to see it rally back up, but it's just slowly drifting lower and lower and lower. So now, in my opinion, was actually a really bad piece of data that came out today. Of course, you had the Jerome Powell speech. Consumer confidence is dropping as well. We were expecting it to jump to 99 Came out at 93, but still decent numbers. Now, as far as tomorrow goes, yes, I saw the comment there. It is the second day of testimony from Jerome Powell, so he will be speaking. That is going to be, as you can click here, the Senate Committee for Banking. That's a big one. Banking, housing, and urban affairs. So there'll be a lot of talk about the housing market, the potential slowdown there. And it certainly is one of those speeches that should be contentious. There's going to be a lot of tension between Jerome Powell and the senators asking these questions, but it could move markets. Again, be careful. You don't want to get yourself caught holding on to something when, especially in the housing side of things, if he talks, good or bad about housing. As far as earnings, tomorrow, you've got Micron Technologies reporting earnings. You also have Paychex, General Mills are some of the bigger names there on the domestic side of things, and then really just mainly international companies reporting earnings tomorrow. And I think that is going to do it for today. Now, I'm hoping that this ceasefire holds. As a human, I hope that this holds and everybody kind of calms down and, let's come to the table and come to some agreement. Probability tells me it's probably not. So, we look at that oil chart already. Oil's been down almost 18% in 2 days. I'm expecting it to actually have a pretty decent pop here by Friday. Whether there's the ceasefire or not, I think that it's just been way overdone in a short window of time. Guess I should wait another couple of days to fill up my car because gas prices are probably dropping as well. All right, what do I have coming through here? Well, there's not ceasefire, Merlin. I don't think there will be. I think it's going to come right back, and that'll spark it back to the upside. People can afford houses, so prices are not going up as much. That might be part of it. The rising cost of buying a home, it's actually been dropping here a little bit. So if you look at what happened with that 10-year yield going all the way back into April of this year, we're at 3.85, and then we surged all the way up to 4.6 and change. That's a 75 basis point increase. When you're getting a $500,000 loan or something like that, that certainly can have an impact, and your payments might be pricing you out of a home. So yes, it could certainly price people out of a home, that's for sure. Earnings, watch out for breaks at below. Yeah, I don't like trading earnings days just because. If you look at Micron, Micron has been absolutely gorgeous. You're up 100% since April, 100% plus for Micron. Just a gorgeous looking chart. I have to send an email to her, maybe give my neighbor a call because he's going to be loving this one. All right, Chad, who's been pretty active in the Discord group. Thank you for that, Chad. He says, as far as oil and market prices, I don't trust news or fundamentals. Institutions are going to do what they do to make money. So follow the money and the technicals, widen stops, and reduce positions. Yep. Yeah, I don't trust the news either. But going back to my comments from yesterday, all it takes is one. It doesn't even have to be the Iranian government. It could be anyone doing some rogue attack in the Strait of Hormuz. Bad. Glenn says, how's your circle? Well, we saw it dip today, didn't we? Still a long ways away. I've got puts that are so far out of the money. It's not even close. Do we get there by July? These ones are done. These these ones are done. So let's get rid of those. So the 110's out. And I think, let me just verify, I'm pretty sure I have the 120s expiring in July, but I want to make sure I have that. I didn't update these numbers on the screen, so thanks for putting that up there, Glenn. It's not good. That's, even though it was down 15% today, it's just how crazy that rally has been for Circle. Mind-boggling. Just phenomenal rally. Of course, it was going against me. I have the 120s. So let me put that 120 on your screen here. And I'm going to move this over because I have the July puts. So I have until this vertical line, which is the 18th. So there we go. So I'll leave that right there. And I actually need to go a little bit lower. Bear with me as I'm updating these to fit the prices. So, yeah, I got a long way to go. A very long way to go. It's currently trading at $227, and I have the 120 puts. Yeah, I need another 100 points. So you're saying there's a chance, right, Big M? Hey, look, just as fast as this thing came up, it can come screaming back down. And, my argument is the fundamentals, or just the numbers don't make sense. Its initial IPO is 28, came out at 31, and it was trading up at almost 300. Goodness gracious. Absolutely insane. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to wrap up. Let's do it. Supplies on above, time to short on correction above. She's now down below. Too late. Are you talking about on Circle? You know, Circle, you could argue this was like a giant shooting star. But, you know, if you can hold it, I think Circle is going to be fine getting back to much lower prices. It's way overdone. There's not a person on this planet that can justify $227 per share for Circle. This is propped up because of lack of supply. There's only 18% of the shares on the market. So, yeah, no, I would never buy directionally on this one. I wouldn't sell puts on this one. I would just be buying directional puts. And I've done 2 already, and they've both lost, so that's cost me a bit of money, and I've got a third set on right now. I thought about acting one more. I told you I got $1,000 left in my $7,000 number that I told myself I was going to throw at this. And, yeah, we're down. I'm a hypocrite as we are all, because it's tough to talk markets without some bias or plan. So news fundamentals matter. Yeah. Well, obviously the trades I'm making are based to some extent off of the news, but me selling puts on oil today. If you go to USO, selling puts on oil. I'm doing this basically because I do believe there's gonna be more conflict. Right? If you look at the historical chart, you know, $73 per barrel. My strike price would be 71, so I'd be getting it lower. Historically, it looks like it's kind of right in the middle of this sideways action for the better part of 3 years. Actually, yeah, near the lower side of it. So I'm okay there. That's fine. All right, I got to run. I got to fix a couple things here, but hope you guys enjoyed today. And again, beware of scammers. If you see them out there, check the name. If it's not the full spelled out Trader Merlin, they always try to move an I or something on you. Do not fall for their scams. Do not send them any money. You can always ask me if I'm emailing you directly, because you have my email at tradermerlin@gmail.com. So be careful. Share that with your friends too, so nobody gets scammed. I wish ill will on all of these scammers. It really just drives me absolutely nuts. So thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something today. If you have a topic you want me to cover on Wednesday's show, you can email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. Tomorrow, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. I know I tweeted it out. I was invited to go to Wolf Financial, and I don't know what the topic is going to be. I was asked to join this discussion. It'll be at the Money Show, or I guess in part with the Money Show. So you've got Carly Garner, you've got myself, you've got Convert Bond, Moneyflows.com, Bay Street Amber, and Tatulu. These are all people who are speaking at the conference up in Las Vegas next month, and I will be a part of that panel. So we'll see that. That's going to happen at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can go to my Twitter and find out more information about that. But I'll be in there, and I'm going to literally be in there for half hour, 45 minutes, and jump straight into our show. So there you go. More fun for you guys to experience with. So thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic remainder of your day, and I will see you mañana. Ciao.